exemption by statute authority. Again, continue to restrict employee carry policy and conduct a feasibility study for implementation of adequate security as defined by statute. Now, there's where we're going to drill down a little bit more. Option A. Okay, install security measures as outlined by state statute, metal detectors, full-time persons. The pro to that? If you want to look at this as a pro, we expend $100,000 in security measures, but we exempt the building for the foreseeable future. We're no longer going to have to address the issue. It's done. It's completed. We are in compliance and we're good. Now the downside, initial cost and the long-term cost. This is not just something we own 1 year. It is a continually, we're going to have to budget for it. Long-term commitment on employees. Let's look at option B. Remove CCL prohibited notices and allow carry in buildings. Make changes to rotunda or service windows, ballistic glass, panic alarms, etc., etc. Continue to restrict employee carry by policy. Really, least expensive and easiest to implement. Okay, some cost to it. That's the downside. How much? No, maybe $17,000 to $22,000. Again, where's that in the budget? Do we have it? Weapons allowed in building. Some people feel the downside is, and please understand, I have received emails from people saying you must allow weapons in City Hall. It's our right. We have to. It's on the right hand. On the left hand, I get emails from people like, how can you dare allow weapons in City Hall? Because you know what? I won't feel safe there. So this is one of those balancing acts. So that's why I say some citizens' employees may feel uncomfortable or threatened with that type of move. Option B. Let's look at option C. This is our exemption. Develop security plan and request additional 4-year exemption per statute authority. Continue to restrict employee carry by policy. Conduct a feasibility study for implementation of adequate security and a safety plan as defined by statute. Approve a submitting letter requesting exemption. Task the city administrator or myself with developing a safety plan. Now, the pro side, easy implementations. Upgrades to City Hall, we talked about that. Ballistic glass, panic buttons, and safety training. Downside, still, money, cost, alienation of the citizens who are CCL holders. Gentleman here stood up and talked about it. Well, they feel alienated. If you're saying, I'm going to exempt myself, we're going to exempt the building. These are the options that you have. I wish I had more to offer. In essence, I would like to say that there was more we could do with it, but there's not. So I did check with my counterparts in the county. All of them are taking the 4-year exemption. There's not been one that's opted to say no. And they're all waiting to see maybe what comes out of the state further on another year or two down the road. Questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
All the options you say to exempt or continue with the policy where employees are not allowed to carry. Why is that?
Okay, I'll tell you why. It's one of these things, again, I wish it was just as simple to say, let's let an employee carry and that will solve all the problems. But that's something that's also fraught with a little bit of danger. And let me explain why. And I'll start off with this. I've been an officer for almost 40 years. In that 40-year period, I've known 7 officers who have had accidental discharges. I would love to say that here we are, we're trained well, we shoot 2 or 3 times a year, we're supposedly, experts in our weapons and weaponry skill. I've seen them blow light bars off the tops of cars. I've seen them blow holes through walls. I've seen them do things, along those lines. And these are people who are trained and trained routinely on weapons. We have that issue. My issue is you cannot take out human nature in the equation of letting our employees carry. What do I mean by that? Well, what I mean by is that I get a new gun, even though by city policy I'm not to have it out, I'm not to flash it around, I'm not to play with it, I'm standing in the break room, I'm going, hey, look at my new semi-auto, look at my new revolver, whatever. You want to look at it? Yes, let me look at it. Is the round clear? Yeah, well, let me check it just to be sure. And they double feed it, they double shuck it, whatever. The round goes off, hits someone in the leg, or better, worse yet, goes through a wall and hits another employee who just happens to be sitting there. All right, well, maybe we can deal with that through training, but then let's deal with this too. What about the other 2 issues we deal with? What about the employee who is sitting in an office and hears people yelling and screaming in the front lobby of the rotunda out here, decides that this is their time to make the course right and do the right thing, runs out and shoots someone, only to find out that really the situation didn't merit it. Then we also have this to deal with. I would love to have every one of my officers in this city know every individual within this city, within the city building, by sight, but they don't. So what happens if I'm an employee and I go out to resolve a problem and my officers come through the front door armed with their long rifle, AR-15s, and they are trained and told, neutralize the threat? Which means if I have an employee that they're not familiar with, or we have one there, possibility exists they could be shot and killed. Well, okay. You know, there's all these laws that say that we're exempted. We're exempted on all of this. There's not a problem. Don't worry about that, Chief. Well, you know, I'll agree with that to a certain extent, because I assure you, I've known officers who have been unjustifiable, waived off by the district attorney, by the state attorney general, that in what is called justified use of force shooting situations, by our standards, are good in every way, and they face 5, 6, and 7 years civil litigation. So I think that's just something to consider when we talk about that. Now, I know it's kind of a long, drawn-out answer to a very short question, and hopefully that answered it.
Real quick, after staff presentation, this is usually where we give an opportunity
Sure.
for members of the public to come forward and speak on the new business item. But don't go far, Chief.
Oh, no.
We're going to have more questions for you, I'm sure. So, at this time, we're going to open up the floor to public comments. We'll allow members of the public to come forward and be heard on new business item number 1.
Evening.
Good evening. State your name and address for the record, please.
My name is Brett Limer. My address is 18524 Spruce Court. Thank you for allowing me a few minutes to speak and to share information that I've learned from studying how Kansas has reacted since passing HB 2052. The Kansas Senate substitute for House Bill 2052, as our chief said, enacts new law and amends existing law concerning firearms and the criminal law. It also modifies the Personal and Family Protection Act, specifically regarding the concealed carry of handguns. Officials with Lenexa, Kansas City, Kansas, Wichita, Johnson County, and the Kansas Association of Counties all testified against this bill, which was signed into law on April 16th by Governor Brownback. I was personally curious how many cities, counties, schools, libraries, and hospitals had requested exemption from allowing concealed handguns within their entities. I also wanted to know how Gardner and Johnson County compared to the rest of Kansas. So I obtained the over 400 exemption requests that were sent to Kansas Attorney General Derek Schmidt. I reviewed every single letter from every single city, county, school, library, and hospital. What I found by an overwhelming margin is the entities requesting exemption, representing a large majority of Kansas citizens, do not want to allow the concealed carry of handguns within their municipal buildings. The state of Kansas has 105 counties, representing a population of over 2.8 million residents. A total of 75 boards of county commissioners from counties all over the state requested exemption from HB 2052. A notable 71% of counties in Kansas do not want to allow the concealed carry of handguns in their courthouses and other municipal buildings. The locations wishing to be exempt from the concealed carry law are the most populous cities and counties in Kansas. In fact, 24 of the 25 largest cities in the state, representing a majority, 54% of Kansas residents, have requested exemption. The total population of the 30 counties that did not request to be exempt totals only 195,000 residents, about the size of Overland Park and Gardner combined. This extreme minority of HB 2052 supporters equates to only 6.8% of the total number of Kansas residents, and in my opinion should not trump what the vast majority of Kansans apparently want. Taking more of a local view, Johnson County has 20 incorporated cities representing a population of over 500,000. In addition to county libraries and hospitals requesting exemption from 2052, 13 of the largest 16 cities in the county, representing an overwhelming 85.7% of Johnson County residents, requested to be exempt from allowing concealed handguns within their municipal buildings. To conclude, Kansas state law has provided the options to comply with concealed carry statutes.